Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and Gayla Katzla for joining me. My name's Darren Deru Sprinkle, and today I have an amazing guest named Melissa Warner, and I think she takes the cake for giving me the best quote of the week. I have it written down in front of me, and why she loves birds. Birds can leave the planet. Who would love to leave the planet? I know I would too, every now and then, but I wouldn't right now. I'd like to talk to Melissa. And so welcome to the show, Melissa Warner. Thanks for joining us, Melissa. How are you doing today? Oh, you're muted. Let me see if I can fix that for you. Oh, I got you muted. Try that see if you could fix that. I'm going to pull you back out and then add you right back. I'm not sure what went on there. Let's try this. Add you back to the stream. Let's give it 1 second. Oh, it says your mic isn't connected. How about you just disconnect your headphones? There we go. How's that? Can you hear me now? Oh, wow. We all have tech problems. Don't worry about the headphones. It's all good. Can you hear me okay?
You sound like a cartoon, so I don't know why I can't.
Let me do this.
You.
I'm going to pull you out of the stream and then I'll introduce our topic. See if you can sort out your audio for a second. So today we have Melissa Warner, part of the Octopus movement. And so is she. And what is that? Well, the Octopus movement is a group of multi-potentialite folks from around the globe. Each one of us, different area of life, neurodiverse, various labels. Some of us choose to wear them. Some of us choose not to wear them. The importance is we're coming together to solve global issues, to be more empathetic and to learn from each other. And so we had a think tank just last week, and then we started doing these lives to follow them up. Melissa, how's your audio? Can you hear me now?
It still sounds like a cartoon. I can't really understand you.
That is such a bummer. What would you like to do? You want to wrap it up and come back, or you could log back on?
I can leave and come back? I'll try that?
Absolutely. Let's try that.
Okay.
I'll keep talking about what was Ecocide. Go ahead. So Perry Noppert from the Octopus movement threw this think tank together to discuss ecocide. Is it criminal? Ecological genocide? Should we, put people in jail for life for what they've done to our environment? And, there are a lot of opinions frontwards and back on just legal systems. I'm not sure what would be fair globally, to prosecute people. I sure would love to see an end to this global issue we're having. We would all love to see an end to, ecological disasters and chemicals in our water systems. A lot of kids aren't being taught what happens if they pour things out in the road. There's so many things. There's such a huge topic. Melissa, how's the audio? We doing okay?
Much better. You sounded like Minnie Mouse before.
I feel like Minnie Mouse sometimes. Thanks for coming back. So I was just introducing a little more about what was Ecocide to me, and I would say to you first, going back to the Octopus movement, what even brought you to join the Octopus movement?
It was someone I connected with on LinkedIn, Daniel Adland. I hope I'm saying his last name right. I don't remember what made me reach out to him, but he told me about it. And around that time, I had also heard the term, I think, neurodivergent for the first time, kind of coincidentally around that same time. And it piqued my interest because I had never heard it, and it definitely seemed to apply to me. So I jumped in from there and was really excited to find other people who thought like me.
Sure. Yeah. And I feel, a sense of comfort, I guess, falling under that label at times, because it's a label of labels that you can't label also, And so we're all just so different. We all need space to be human, and we all can learn from one another, despite how our brain or physical presence is here on this planet. And so that's awesome. I'm fairly new to the Octopus movement, but once I met Perry and understood what he was doing, I instantly wanted to put whatever gas on that I could, because it was fun. It's a wild bunch of people. It's a creative bunch of people, unique bunch of people. It feels like the debate team and the drama club from high school that I lost in high school, because I was sort of that kid. I certainly was never the cool kid. I was playing music and doing, the outside the box things, and that wasn't okay where I was at the time. But look, it's okay now, right? Because here we're growing up, we're falling into our own. You have this wonderful friend of yours named Gatsby that you bring with you, and I have my friend Waffles here next to me. Waffles is my little Shih Tzu, and I actually have 4 dogs in the household right now because I am nuts. But, neurodiverse is a great thing. I think everyone should look it up if you don't know what it means. And multi-potentialite, that's another thing for anyone who feels like, why can't I just get my shit together? What is wrong with me? Any of those things that your parents said to you that made you feel crappy, that you're still saying to yourself, you're probably a multi-potentialite, free-thinking person that's in the box someone put you in, and you need help getting out. I needed help, getting out too, So I'm glad you joined the movement. Why did you join the think tank? That's like anybody can just be a part of a club. But then you said, no, I want to participate.
Yeah, I have had so many ideas. And like you said, it's been hard to just get it into one box. So I kind of wanted to see how other people, possibly smarter people than I, were doing that. I wanted to maybe, in addition to hear your and their thoughts, to bounce some of my ideas off of you, and I felt less of a risk that I would be like given a weird look, or that's crazy, that's too out there, that could never happen, in this kind of group.
Right. Did you feel that way?
That I could...
At the end, now that we've left this think tank group from last week, did you feel heard, and did you feel like you were a part of the group?
Oh, yeah. I did more listening for sure. But yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, is there anything as a group we could have done better to be more inclusive to anyone for their first time, or for someone that may not have as easy a time speaking up?
Um, I I can't really think of anything. Um, I
Well,
certainly felt included.
that's awesome. If there are things as we go at any moment, please let any of us know, right? Because we're a collective. There's no governor or mayor. We're all working in the same direction. And so we want this inclusive mindset, free thinking. We want people to leave feeling heard, even if maybe they didn't have something to say, you know?
Right.
Right? Sometimes you just need to go to a place and it be okay that you were there and left, right? Sometimes it feels weird when you go somewhere and you feel odd. I feel that way, sometimes, you know. One of the things we talked about, was that is this ecocide idea criminal? Should it be criminal? And when you were working on your audio, I was talking, just to the whoever's listening about I'm not sure I'm willing to trust people to decide what's criminal and who are those. I don't judge. I don't trust the judge and jury any longer.
Right.
As a kid, I was taught that those people were accountable and trustworthy. And then I learned about Public Enemy and Dead Kennedys and Black Flag. And then I learned to kind of question authority and go, oh, no one's right all of the time. It's impossible, right? And then I joined the military for some reason, so I lost my voice altogether, but that sort of mindset of should it be criminal? What do you think about ecological genocide?
Well, this is interesting because my biggest passion project has to do with reforming our legal system. And I especially take issue with the emphasis we put on guilt and shame. So, like you, I don't trust. I went to law school. I'm not a practicing attorney, but I have the same distrust issues that you do. And I think focusing on making it criminal, imposing more guilt, more shame on people, I don't think that works. I think there's a better way to do it, to reframe it. And I'm still kind of formulating my thoughts on this to be able to articulate it clearly. But yeah, it's like who's to judge.
Right. Well, I mean, there's who's to judge, and then there's also you can look at some factory in China that's just dumping waste directly into a river, right? And then it's hard to not cast judgment because you're watching this happen, and there's maybe only 20, 30 people there that are profiting from this. And
Right.
There's who knows how many thousands that will be affected in small ways or major ways. And I don't mean just human beings, life in general. Bugs, plants, animals, birds, everything. When those things trigger and happen, those people are always long gone. That's the problem too,
Right.
And so are you prosecuting what happened 100 years ago? Because look, I mean, Carnegie and his steel stuff, they did a lot of mess to all over. And then, I'm actually in Wanapum territory, where I'm at the Hanford nuclear waste site just down the road, where they no longer have their hunting or fishing grounds. Now it's a nuclear site. So is that criminal? Then who's going to prosecute the United States military, then the United States federal government, and then the lawmakers and everyone else that took that land from those people? Like, it seems so hard to fix some of these huge ideas, and certainly getting into things on the legal side and learning about all that. You really have an understanding of it's not necessarily truth. It's what version or how it's presented. I have a lot of attorneys in the family. And then on the other side, I have lots of people of color in my family. And I'm going to tell you what, I don't know that I would want the people that are running things nowadays to continue the way they're running the things the way they are without everyone having equal say at the small details of the decisions those people are making, because it's all hypocritical at some point, you know.
Right.
And to take someone's life from that person because of something, I don't know. I'm a person who's made mistakes. If we're being honest, I think I'm on my second run of recovery. I think I got 5 or 6 years. I try not to count the days because today's the day. But that being said, when I was operating in those ways, I was probably that Chinese corporation. I was not a good human, and I didn't know how to take care of myself even. And so it's it feels like I wish everyone could have a heart change. That's the real deal there. And the topic of today's show was, what small changes can we make that can make a huge ripple later, or maybe what's a small thing you do that it doesn't even have to matter to anyone else, but for you it makes sense, and for you it's wisdom, and it's good for what the planet around you.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'd say this is a small thing that I did, but I think it's something that everyone can do. When I first decided that I wanted to be better to the environment a few years ago, I get obsessed with something. So I need to know every detail, and I have to do everything I possibly can. And it was just too many changes at once. And I wasn't able to, stick to that, or I wasn't recycling perfectly or whatever it was. And then I'd give up on it. I'd beat myself up. And I'd kind of find another cause and kind of go back to bad habits. And I think that anytime you step too far out of, making any type of change is a step out of your comfort zone. And if you step too far, you set yourself up to sabotage it. So now I've made significant changes that have become habitual, but I had to kind of forgive myself, number one, for not being the best person in a lot of ways in the past. And also still, I'm not perfect with it. Good example, I'm really into conscious water. I have a beautiful water ionizer, and I have these reusable bottles that I take my water out with. And today I left and I forgot my water. And I went and I bought a plastic water bottle. In the past, I would have been beating myself up over this. But,
Right.
It's like, okay, is it really that big of a deal? Just, again, not to shame myself for still being human.
Yeah. And the other side of that too is, had you not gotten yourself water, that's not loving. You're out
Exactly.
and you forgot, and that is a human aspect of life, forgetting. And it's not like you can go to a restaurant and say, can I hold this cup? Can you fill it while I drink it and hand it back to you, and then I'm going to leave, right? Water is a basic right. It should be, but it's not really that accessible. And so, right. Compared to the 80s, you definitely have a lot more people moving around with bottles, but cutting yourself some slack and saying, hey, I need it, and this is just today, and that's okay. I love that idea. I don't know that I've done anything perfectly once, so yeah, you just
Me neither.
you just have to figure that out, and figure out what works for you. And I think that's the other aspect to this is this is a personal journey for every human, because everyone is in a different community faced by all different aspects of what ecological disasters are in front of their face or hidden from their faces. And the more poor you are on this globe, the closer you are to those things. And,
Right.
We are in a place where we have the ability to choose. And thank God, that's amazing. I don't want to just sit in that, though. And I don't feel like you do either. And that's
Right.
why we're here, right?
Right.
So, yes, I forgot my bottle, but I'm talking about it, and maybe that little idea someone heard today and they go, oh, yeah, I'm going to remember to bring my bottle. It's that simple. If you reminded 10 people, that's a case of water. We did this on the last show because Katie Melton was on, and she no longer uses shampoo products on her hair and has a homemade solution for that. And I've grown my hair out, and I'm like, I have oily hair. I can't handle that. And, her first thing was like, yeah, it's not for everybody. Right. And that's the thing. It's not for everybody. But then walking away, it's about all I can think about. Like, oh, I'd love to figure out how to do that. How to wash my hair with baking soda or whatever recipe it was. Because when I did the math with her and then I walked away and I continued doing the math, I'm like, yeah, that is so quickly a container ship of plastic bottles.
Yep.
And not only that, the people that are making these plastic bottles a lot of times are not ecologically sound people who are running these corporations and are going to get it the cheapest they can. They're using plastic to provide the cheapest product they can to the retail environment. And so they are going to be as cheap as they can. How could you fault them in a capitalistic sort of globe we're in that way?
Right.
It's not cool for them to make paper anymore, or make glass and all of those things. Well, look, Aziz stopped by. Hello, Aziz. Thanks for coming by. We appreciate you. We're just talking about eco-genocide and ecocide. And, hey, forgetting a bottle, but then remembering a few stops, that is a small change that if a lot of us do. I mean, you can't even imagine. I don't know if you saw in the promo, and it's why I grabbed that video, and it's a man on a kayak or a canoe, and he gets paid about 4 to 5, I think equivalent in, maybe it said euros or dollars per day to pick up plastic bottles out of their river that is now completely toxic, and so at least someone has decided to pay someone that can't make a living to get it out at some regard. That's a small idea. Is it a good idea? No clue. I have no idea. I would have to ask the man on the canoe, hey, my man, does this work for you? Because I bet you don't want to do this every day. I bet you'd rather live somewhere where you don't have to be, smelling toxic water, and that's what he was talking about in the interview was how bad the water smells because, there's animals that just die in it because it's so toxic and it just is putrid. And every day, 9 hours a day, he's on the water. And so he's picking up the same plastic bottles you're sparing. And so every single one does matter. Maybe ours aren't going to end up in the Philippines or wherever, but it should matter that we just don't want them to end up anywhere. That would be wonderful.
Right.
Right. That's a wonderful idea, and not small by any means, because for some people it's a big shift to kind of get out of that mindset of, even buying a Pepsi or Coke 3 times a day. Right? Those people think of what they have to do to just shift to water first.
Exactly.
Right? So if I shift to water, now I'm no longer giving Coca-Cola, who's not a wonderful corporation, by the way, all of these dollars any longer. Right? That's, for me, when I go to the store, I think a little bit more indigenous than some because I'm studying my culture so much and I'm it does drive my inner voice. On the same side, it does drive the inner voice to be more compassionate and less rigid on myself, because society has told us rigidity and shame you and punish you because you did it wrong. And that's why, like you and I were discussing, that inner voice that we have to grapple with sometimes is, it's not our own. Because when we're in our real present joy, we're not talking to ourselves in the negative, right? We're
Right.
we're saying other things,
Yeah, and the rigidity that you have to yourself, at least I'll speak for myself, being so rigid and perfectionistic made me project that out onto other people. So I was very judgmental about other people's habits. And meanwhile, it was really just frustration with myself for not making these pretty big changes, several areas, several habits at once. I couldn't do that, so I was frustrated. So I would be pointing my finger at everybody else, shaming them for, whichever habit, in this case, habits that are not good for the environment. So as cheesy as I'm sure it sounds to a lot of people, compassion and just this constant self-forgiveness is really, I think, the most helpful thing to making a big change.
Absolutely. I mean, compassion is such a gift. If you can truly feel that, I think it changes the way you do move around and the way you look at the trail you're leaving behind you. I mean, beautifully said. How have you been able to find the journey from rigidity, perfectionism, to compassion, not only for yourself, but a better worldview? Take us through that.
I think I was kind of forced into it. I was really, really hard on myself, and it was leading me to more destructive, mostly self-destructive behaviors. And it just kind of reached a breaking point where that all broke down, and I was kind of became pretty uncomfortably miserable as opposed to comfortably miserable, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of taking a look at myself and accepting myself for who I am, and then transferring that, to stay on this topic, to making better decisions and being okay when I, slipped up, not pouring more shame on myself. I don't know. It's difficult to have compassion. It's painful. It's easier to hold on to anger and to hold on to those lower density emotions, even though that seems very counterintuitive. And in my case, a lot of my interest in the environment stems from my intense connection to animals. And I'm aware that myself and fellow humans also live on this earth, but animal suffering to me is the most upsetting. It's the thing I'm most passionate about. So when I think, well, animals are suffering because of our behaviors, the emotion gets heightened within me. And with that comes a tendency to, be angry, fall into anger, fall into shame, fall into guilting somebody because we got to hurry up. Like, we don't have time for baby steps. Animals are suffering now because of this. So it takes, it took me a little while to realize that approach doesn't work, and I did that a lot with stuff like eating animals. I would get just very, very angry and then throw shame at people, and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's interesting. My wife, Stace, is very much like that with animals. So much so, in the last run, I was going to pick up some vinyl records, a big stack from this guy out in the country. And we're just driving down this beautiful country road. And then all of a sudden, we pass an animal being slaughtered in the middle of a field. I mean, it was not really. I don't know why the guys did it the way they did it. They should have turned their whole truck around, but they were doing it in I don't know. It was right next to the road, and it just threw her off the rest of the day. She was weeping. And here's the thing, I love animals as well, but I can't get that compassionate because of I guess my upbringing. My dad was a rancher, and I mean, I grew up just kind of, some animals die, that's sad. People die, that's sad. But that's not how I want to live. I want to be more compassionate. I just couldn't get there. That to be said, I'm now eating vegetarian. And she still feels that same way about animals. I still feel the same way I feel about animals. I'm not a vegetarian because I don't want to put a bullet in another cow. Unfortunately, that's not who I am. What was really messed me up was when I understood the marketing and the business and the waste behind the whole meat industry in general. And it had to get more personal for me. I have a lot of people on our tribal land, and right outside of that is a fish farm, and it's not doing good things for the coastline. It is terrible. Like, please, if you go to Costco, stop buying farmed fish. Just stop. That's a small change. If everybody stopped doing that, that market stops. Sure, they'll sell it to the dog food industry for a while, and then they'll go away. They're just abusing the coastline, and no one can see what they're doing because it's underwater. But I had to understand that just the feces from these salmon farms was killing all these other species and doing all these other things. And then when I learned about that, I fell into the research of, I don't want to take something in if it's harming this many other people. That's what got me, is like, it wasn't a guilt thing anymore. It wasn't a shame thing. It was like, if I don't have to participate in this, I'm going to figure out another way, And again, saying I wish I had the kind of love and compassion like you and my wife have for animals, and I wish more people did, because they are such a gift to us, like we were talking before the show. I stare at birds for hours a day if possible, and they are life-giving, and they're not meant to be just, consumed and tossed, So.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for shamanic culture and the practice of using an entire animal that they kill. You're never going to see me out hunting, killing a deer or killing whatever. So I realize it feels very hypocritical to then be eating one, even if I knew it was killed humanely. But yeah, absolutely. The factory farming of fish or any animal is horrible for the environment as well, of course.
Well, and a lot of times the product, is barely an animal at the point you get it. You're really not getting what you've subscribed to, and
right.
It's so funny. This whole protein industry is just, it feels like a U.S. thing. I don't know if the whole globe is nuts about protein as they are in the U.S. It's just insanity. I don't remember ever spending that much time thinking about how much protein I'm getting, or I never heard my parents talk about that as a kid, but you hear it everywhere now,
Yeah, I used to be pretty obsessed with my protein intake being very high, or thinking because
Me too.
I run long distance that I needed to have this incredibly high protein intake. And now I notice, I mean, everybody's different, but for me, I eat very low protein and I actually feel a lot better. And I never would have thought that could be true. So,
Yeah. I just stopped counting
oh yeah,
because for me, that was another control, perfectionistic, blah, blah, blah. I didn't need it anymore. I'm almost 44. I pretty much know what it is to eat healthy by now. And I know when I'm doing, when I'm not, if I go buy a bag of Cheetos and expect my brain to be the best it can be, I'm fooling myself.
right,
So we all do it in our own little categories of life. But there's no there's no sense in being rigid if you can't have life in it, right? Too. And when
right,
I was in the protein stuff, I was just trying to I don't know, I was clawing for health or something. I wasn't trying to be an athlete again, in my life. I was fit in the military for a while, but I was never really obsessed with it. But this was like, I have some brain stuff, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna do this super protein. I can't remember what's the name of that protein diet everyone does. Keto.
keto.
Yeah, so I did that for a long time, and I ended up really, everybody told me I looked like a cancer patient because of like how skinny I was and just I don't know that that was good for me. Um, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
It just it didn't fix my brain health. So if anybody's out there wondering, if you know if you try something and it's not working, well, that's because you're different than everyone else. Like, yeah, we're all
right.
different. So find your own lane, do your own thing. Oh, look, Aziz says hello to you.
Hi,
Hello,
hi,
Aziz.
Aziz.
Oh, Eduardo's in the house. I don't know if you know Eduardo X, but I sure hope you know him at some point. He and I are part of a couple projects together. One is called Founders King. It's a new magazine coming out with a lot of very interesting people from around the world that, have humanity mindset and they want to leave something on the table. And so it fits really in line with our conversation. And I am excited to be, part of their group of founding members and to see what's going to happen from this because there's a lot of us that want change. And the more I do this, the better I feel, the more excited I feel that there is a movement happening because when you turn away and you get lost in the shuffle, it doesn't feel like it anymore.
Right.
It doesn't feel like you can sense a result if you watch the news for one more second these days.
Yeah, I stopped watching the news in I think late 2019, and I'm astounded at the how amazing I feel to the level that I can attribute it just to that, changing that habit, not watching the news.
I don't know how many of us there are, but I am one of these people. I know I don't watch the news, and I've set boundaries for people in my life that I say I don't subscribe to the news. Please ask me if I are you. Can you accept this right now? Do you
Right.
want this? Because most of the time I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
And the thing with that is, I stopped the news early 2020. It wasn't COVID. I got my eyesight back. It was maybe January. By the 15th of January, I had my vision back. And I was living outside, mobile again, getting my life back. And I was like, and then with the pandemic, and I'm in the Seattle area, I'm from a mixed race household, and then the eruption of the George Floyd stuff happened all around me, and I couldn't handle the stress internally, and so even what was tough though is because the kids were at home. It was COVID then, and everybody was on their phones and, oh, did you see this? Did you see this? And then I remember that there was one day, and I said, you guys, I'm done. And I have not looked at the news since. I don't
Yeah.
look at a BuzzFeed. I don't even know what those are, really. I hear people say those all the time because those things aren't good for me. It's like, it's like drinking poison soup and thinking I'm going to be healthy in the morning.
Right.
And so I understand why people watch it and why, if you're watching this, I don't judge you. It just no longer works for me. And I too have received, better health. I'm not 100%. I'm not where I would like to be, but I don't have the stress of some of these things on a daily basis. And it actually leaves me space to work with people to do things that affect the things people are talking about in the news instead of just bitching about it on Facebook. Right? Like, we're going to get together, okay, and we're all upset about this. Okay, we're going to meet next Thursday. And those are the kind of people that I'm meeting here at the Octopus Movement. I'm in a couple other groups like, Founders King. We certainly have these kind of discussions. And my friends Dorothy Auger and Daria, we get together every other week, or every week actually, every Tuesday, and we do the same thing. We are, just these little pockets of global collective human beings, and some of those people are in politics. Thank you, Daria, because I am not. I won't be able to enter into that. Right? It's just not me, and so it's going to take all of us working together in whatever way. And so that's really cool. I guess cool that you don't watch the news because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people you run into that go, it's like, it kind of feels like, you're at an AA meeting or something. It's like, hey, or like we all know each other. We're fine here.
Right.
Like we're just different than the rest. But mad respect for that. That's just, it's not easy when you're going through, big global events as we've had the last 2 years, to not pay attention to it, to still weather the storm. It just proves that you're going to be fine, that there's solutions, and the solutions aren't on the media, right? You found every one of your solutions. You're here.
Right. I used to think it was very irresponsible to not watch the news, to not, be informed. And I realized it was just, I'm taking in a lot of stuff that it's just making me feel more helpless. And I wasn't doing anything about it. And I was one of those, griping on Facebook about it.
Right.
So it's just this circle, and then I feel worse, and nothing is getting better because I'm watching the news. So,
right.
Yeah.
The problem with that is, I think when we decide to participate in it, if we're honest, it's just gossip. And gossip never leads almost anywhere but negative. Because the opposite of gossip is, we come to each other and we say, hey, I don't like what you're doing. And then you would say, I don't like what you're doing. And then we go, what are we going to do about it as adults? Right. Instead we go, my way's right and you're wrong because I watched more of this network than your network, or this person versus that person, right? None of that stuff is applicable to me anyways. I think that's Eduardo giving us the additional links here. I hope so. Otherwise, I put up a YouTube link to who knows where. So anyway, I'm excited because I don't run into people like that, like you, that are free thinking and intelligent and functioning and have a big perspective, and you're right, like and so I'm highly encouraged to know you and to help you progress in whatever you know, things you have coming, your business pursuits, and as we grow in this octopus movement, you know, we're going to start to recognize each other's faces again, and you know, and then we're going to look back on this conversation, and it'll be like, wow, I can't even believe it was just us sitting around just chatting. And
Yeah.
how important was that? It's very important, you know. What's
Right.
really important is to be known and to be heard, you know. And so that's why I was really hoping that on the outside of the octopus movement think tank, you were feeling known and heard, you know, when you left. And so, you
Yeah.
know, I hope even in this regard you feel heard. I can be chatty when I get excited, and
I'm the same way. I'm the
that's
same way.
awesome. Eduardo says news sells on hate. I do not like hate. Politicians have no integrity. They can be bought by lobbyists. I am not for sale, so I neither watch the news nor associate myself with politicians, except for some few.
Yeah.
Exactly. That few is, I'm sure that is a very small few. Yeah.
I think it's growing. Um,
I think it will be growing. I think the next 20 years, we're going to go, wow. Because you remember 50 years, 60 years ago in this nation, you know, black people were really fighting just to just have a normal day at school, right? I'm not saying we are where we should be today,
right.
but my hope is in 20 years, like we really see that those young people that are, you know, annoyed, they're going to be 40 by that point, and they'll be maybe doing some stuff about it. I'm going to be worn out by then, and I'm going to be making music and hopefully supporting them. But you know, that is just the truth. It is the next generation, you know, that's important. And I think a lot of what we've also talked about, Melissa, was some of those ideas from the previous generation that we've walked around with that have thrown us off in our normal pursuits in life, you know. And so I'm really focused on my children and helping them to be free thinking, and for them to stop asking me what I think of their pursuits, because I just want them to be whole and I want them to be supported, you know, and I don't want them to think like, oh, are you proud of me? Like I'm proud you're my child, and that's where it starts and stops. And
Right.
you're amazing as is. And so we have a culture that says you have to go to school on time and wear certain, you know, don't wear ripped jeans, and don't be late to school or you're punished. You know, some kids are physically punished for that, for being tardy for school still these days. I mean, and then you have the idea that kids must have a good grade, and then they must go to college, and then they wait a specific period of time to have a career, and then they should get married. Like, if we're honest, that's sort of the pattern we've been handed, and that's what the teachers are telling our kids now. And that's why I took my son out of school. That was very, very prevalent in the area we were in. I won't subscribe to a society that doesn't allow my child to think that their worth is beyond a building or a piece of paper. That is insane. Their worth is beyond a job or anything they physically can or cannot do. What if they were mentally disabled then? All of a sudden, are they
Right.
worthless? No, God, no.
Yeah,
You know?
I've connected lately with several unschooling parents, mostly moms. I don't have kids and I don't plan on having kids, but the whole idea of it excites me. So,
Yeah. And even in that, it's all in our own timeline. It's all in, you know, like everybody has their own path. You know, there's just, I've had one of my kids married and divorced already, you know, and a lot of people have asked me very odd questions around that. and I don't understand why I would be ashamed of my kid for something like that. I've had someone ask me that, and I can't connect, because there's a young person that is so loving and is so worth loving. And that's all that matters. And because they couldn't figure out a relationship, or they decided that it was going to work and then it didn't. Look, I've been married, Stacey and I were on our 25th year, but we should have gotten divorced for the sake of the world 4 times. We're both Marines. We're both hard-headed, strong-willed, compassionate and passionate and feisty and wild. And so we rise up and fall apart together, us two, But I do not expect most people to operate that way. Both of my parents have been married. My mom's on her 3rd divorce. My dad has been married. He's on his 3rd marriage. And then people would say, well, you failed those times or whatever. Even they have shame around their aspects of their own lifestyles and their old marriages and stuff. Could you imagine being 70 and being married to someone for, 20 something years, and still be ashamed about something you did, some relationship from when you were 25 or something? How many things can you even remember about when you were 25?
You don't remember the details, but the shame will stay with you. And
it shouldn't, though, because
it should not, of course.
There's nothing shameful about saying, I didn't do it right. I need a second chance. You sort of led the discussion talking about compassion, having compassion for animals, but having compassion for other humans would also make you think not to destroy the thing in front of you or take from someone, or, I heard a lot of wealthy people during COVID complain that the poor people of the nation were getting this free 2 years off. And I was just like, and the thing that was hard for me to hear that was, I'm from the construction industry, so I've ridden both sides of that line. I've been the laborer and I've paid the laborers. I've been the business owner and I've dug the ditch, and a lot of these people have forgotten where they've come from, and they in their imagination think that they're worth $300,000 a year for doing this a few times a day. And those people aren't encouraging anything. They're not creating anything, actually. Most of them are just repeating something someone taught them. So, if they could learn to have compassion for the little man and say, what if everyone in the world needed 2 years off and that's what this was about? How could we all work together and ride this out? We all wouldn't be, looking at a world that's still just riddled with anxiety right now. And everyone's, that's a big issue right now, is mental health and anxiety. And, and, we don't always get a do-over as humanity, but had humanity saw that as just recycling the right way, and just said, man, maybe we should just undo some of these things and have a talk, and, and it's just really, it's really hard that there's not enough of the small man that get a chance at the table, and having compassion, like you said, for the animals is actually the smallest animal at the table, right? They have no voice. And so, that is beautiful, Melissa. I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
We need more human beings like you. We need more compassion. We need more empathy. We need more art. We need more value on art, not on media. We need more value on what people are leaving for the next generation and not what they're getting paid today,
Right.
And so that's my hope. Do you have any final ideas or comments you'd like to share?
Nothing that immediately comes to mind. So
We've
I
gone
guess
about
not.
an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even believe it. It's been, just so encouraging, again, to sit down with someone. It's very different, yet we've had share some same ideas, that will leave me energized to get to the next discussion. And what that means to me, on a personal level, Melissa, I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. I'm a big extrovert. I'm in some health issues. I'm awaiting another surgery. I can't really get in the car and do a lot of things. And so I've really missed sitting down and creating business and doing things and pushing the envelope. And I feel like we were doing that today, you and I. I feel like this conversation can push the envelope, and that some people are going to hear this and some people will disregard, and that's fine. That's not what we care about. Some people are going to hear what you had to say, and and maybe the next time they take a bite of chicken, they think of Gatsby, your friend, in a real human way. That is called that's empathy. He's a fellow bird. That's one of his fellow man, right? So,
Right.
I think it's just about perspective, and so I've enjoyed learning yours, and I'm excited for the next Octopus think tank. I hope you're going to join us, and there's always an open door here at DRU's Live, DRU's Workbench, for you to promote your business and yourself, or just to talk about these kind of things. If something is you see a global issue come up in your area, this is how we make change. This is how you and I can do it when we, may not have the energy or ability to fly across the world. We can do it just like this. So,
Right.
I really do appreciate you, and the world's better for hearing this conversation, I hope. And and if there's any ideas that we got wrong, I would love to be challenged with those. Please reach out via direct message to me. And, I would love to hear your perspective, and you can come on the show and tell me I'm wrong at any point, because we all are wrong often. And
Right.
so am I. So everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. Melissa, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm going to pull us back. I'm going to play that promo one more time because I just loved it. I thought that was a lot of fun, that little video. And we can watch the waste as it goes by. You'll see that river, and that's what we were talking about here. So again, Melissa, hang out in the green room. I'm going to send you in the back. Thank you. All right, everybody. Again, thank you so much. I'm just going to play that intro